Right, my name's Graham. I'm just your average thick Yorkshireman living in Australia for quite some time. But it's the EU and the spread of this globalism. One has to sort of understand and consider the implications of it from a humanistic point of view. What is human? Well, what the EU have done, in a way, is broken their promise to the European people and broken a contract with the Euro states, the different countries of Europe, because and not the people of Europe, not necessarily the governments of the Europe, because Europe was mostly, apart from the Eastern European countries, was mostly a series of democracies, and therefore the democracy is the primary cause, or the breakdown of democracy is a primary cause for the beginning of the breakdown of the EU at the moment, because the EU, the EU, the committee, whatever it is, the bureaucrats what run Europe, they have basically taken the power of if you like, self-determination from the people of Europe off them and now dictating to them how they should be or what they should accept into their lives, when that wasn't the original contract they roped everyone into. Is we're going to make this wonderful union for our people, we call our free travel and everything. That wonderful idea, which is a great idea, there's a great the unification of Europe and Britain involved is a wonderful idea, but the EU committee itself is destroying it. The Britain and the Brexit people, they're not destroying the EU. The Italians and the French, they're not destroying the EU. The committee itself is destroying, it's determined to destroy the people of the EU, the common man and the common woman, and in that way it's destroying its own ideas, if you like. It's running roughshod over people in its most important thing. It's broken the promise everyone signs these legal binding contracts. What does that mean? In the corporate world, these are legal binding contracts. There's no legal binding contracts at the beginning of any of these countries signing up to the EU. To that said, well, we're signing up to the contract with the UN and letting half of Africa into the EU. Africa is not in the EU. But now, according to the EU and the UN, Africa is part of the EU. It's certainly become, in the EU's mind, and the committee's mind, whoever these people are, and the UN's mind, Africa now is dominating the EU. It's telling EU, we're coming in, whether you like it or not. And the EU has said, well, they have to come in whether the people of the Europe like it or not. Now, I'm not against any immigration, legal, lawful, controlled immigration where people go into employment when they arrive and it gives them a better life. All well and good. That's a great idea, it's a wonderful idea. We should welcome all newcomers into our countries, but it should be done through a contract first in their own homes. Sign the contract, you go into this work first for a couple of years, not forever, it's not slavery, it's just an indentured period where you'll do work for 2 years for the country you're going to live in. Therefore, it's fair on the people you're going to live amongst. In no time in history of this world have people moved borders, except just after the Second World War and that, and during big wars, have people moved borders to other places like America or to Australia or Canada or South Africa. No one's emigrated without going there to be employed. They went there determined, or came to Australia, for instance, directly into employment, like many of our fathers did and we did. Therefore, this new wave of immigration, that means people come in only for economic purposes, therefore they don't have to work, is basically a slap in the face of all people who must work, if you like, for a living. It's a slap into the face of people who built the wealth of these countries and now having it stolen off them by a conglomerate of EU leaders, UN leaders, whoever they are, and whoever they've been invited in without the consent of the people of Europe, without the general consent. If you don't explain fully, if you do not explain fully the consequences of any pact or any contract or any negotiation, if you do not explain it fully to the people openly, there is no contract with the people. They don't have to obey a contract because there's no law in that contract. There's no common law. There's not even corporate law. And therefore the contracts that the EU have with all the countries in Europe that are trying to force to take in millions and millions, untold millions of refugees where there's no employment, and we're going through a downturn in employment when it comes to AI and robots. So it has very strange implications. It's very strange implication to say that Europe is not replacing its population. It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to replace its population because robots are going to actually take the care of the work anyway to a greater extent. What it needs is a new contract deal with the people to reduce the amount of working hours so they don't become less slaves to the conglomerates and corporations. And they're freed up. That will be a better idea for Europe than the one they have now. Certainly more inviting. But the one they have now, they've broken the contract with the people of Britain, with the people of France, Belgium, anywhere else, you start Italy, anywhere else that's started to be invaded with maybe 2,000 people at a time. That's an invasion into a space. How do people handle that? That's very scary for people. Yet, the EU is determined to destroy the Europe. It seems to me these people, you would have suppose, being in their positions they can't be very silly. Either they're very stupid people or extremely devious and not actually on the side of the European people themselves. They're on some other side. Globalism, whatever that means, cannot mean the actually allowance of an invasion of endless numbers of people into your own tribal area, your own country, and that's your own place that you're patriotic to. And that's only natural. You cannot allow that and expect the people not to eventually stand up enough and say, that's enough, we don't want any more. Plus the threat of terrorism all the time is actually disturbing what should be a wonderful, peaceful, modern development of the European state or monetary state, whatever it is. So therefore, it's the EU leaders that are actually destroying the EU, not the people who are protesting. They would have gone along with this. But the EU people have become like dictatorships, and the people just don't like dictatorships. They've had them and seen it. Everyone knows the history of that, and they've had a bar of that. They don't want any more of it. So it's the EU leaders have broken the contract with the people of the EU, even if it's not with the legislators who sign the contract. That if you think about it, they're supposed to represent the will of the people. The will of the people no longer agree with that contract. Therefore, if it's democracy in any way, shape or form, those people who sign the contract are no longer representatives of the people. So the EU leaders really need to wakey, become humans, get off their high horses, think what the average person in the street feels, go and walk amongst them if you dare, go and walk amongst the people, see how they really feel, instead of get down and have your castles or wherever you live, and see how the people really feel, and grow a heart, and grow a brain, and re-engage with the soul of the people of Europe. Because at the moment, you've disengaged the soul and the heart. And whatever brain there is there, it's a very strange one that doesn't think things through far enough to the end generation or the later generations to see what the actually negative and regressive effects are of the policies you make now. And this is a fundamental area why the people of the world are starting to get sick and tired of corporations and their governments, because the leadership seems to be devoid of very simple mathematics. These are the negative mathematics, negative economic effects, or positive economic effects. It's that simple. And if you can't work that out as a leader, or whatever you are, then you shouldn't. You know, it's not leadership at all, is it? It's following orders from some corporate entity that you must obey. Well, this is, you know, why do the people, why do they want not to live in peace? Why do they want to disturb the peace of Europe, people of Europe? It's a very serious question. Why do the EU leaders, why are they into disturbing the peace of the people in Europe? What is that? It's a very sad time, actually. I find it extremely sad that so people in these high positions have no feelings whatsoever for their own people, but far more feelings for people that from other countries. There is no contract with EU or any of those countries in the beginning of this, just flooding millions of people. No one signed up for that. Therefore, one wonders what if they planned. Did they plan that in the beginning? They never told anyone. Has everyone been trapped into some strange plot by Dr. No or some enemy of James Bond, Spectre? Is Spectre real? Is that what it is? I don't know. It's all a bit odd, isn't it? It's all a bit naff when you think about it, really. It's a bit uncivilized down there. Anyway, it shows the most civilized people in there, maybe the least civilized after all, you know. That's the way it looks to me.